Welcome back to Brashonomics here the day before Thanksgiving. And as you sit around the table tomorrow, there's a lot of people who are thankful for maybe a growing business, maybe for working at a growing company. And of course, that's an exciting thing to be thankful for. But growing does have its pains. That's why they made a show in the 80s, I think, called Growing Pains, right? Matthew Royal joins us, President Managing Broker with Royal Commercial Corp. Well, Matt, you sure like that It must have been a good show for you, Growing Pains.
Well, that was in my wheelhouse for that period of time in my life. That was an interesting show.
It launched Leonardo DiCaprio. Can you believe it?
Did it really?
Yeah, he was like the little bad kid that came over and, yeah.
Well, again, that wasn't in my wheelhouse, but that's fine.
You're not a
that wasn't my
Leo
demographic.
fan?
Not my demographic.
Come on. Well, Matt, I'm glad you're here because, of course, people do sit around the table tomorrow, discuss what they're thankful for, and a lot of people are going to be thankful for maybe a growing business as businesses are growing in Seattle. In fact, the unemployment rate is down year over year. But as people start to have a growing business, there are some major planning things, especially as it comes to office space, that aren't always maybe recognized in time, would you say?
Absolutely. And actually, it goes both ways. Both, if you're fortunate enough and you can be thankful that your business is growing, attaboy or attagirl, nice effort. There's also the other side to that where, a business owner may be thinking of selling his business, may be thinking of retiring, may be thinking of divesting his business or merging. There's so many different directions that a business owner can take these days. Growth is certainly their preferred. That's what we'd all like to see. We'd all like to see small business, any people
growth or awesome exit strategy.
Or a profitable exit strategy, yes. And in doing that, in planning that, a lot of people, they believe that their lease, and most of the time after you sign it, it is a static document. I mean, it's there. You have to live with it. But there's going into it, again, and we've talked in previous shows about trying to assemble a team to help you. No business owner, no anybody is a master of all topics and an expert in every field. And if you make widgets, I assume that you're going to be the best widget maker there is.
You're the widget master.
The widget master. But if you're doing real estate or you're doing construction or you're doing some other thing that you're not an expert on, don't think that you need to be an expert. That's why you go hire professionals to help you. But in doing that planning, there's a few key things I think that a lot of small, mid-sized, even large businesses already do it because they wouldn't have been successful had they not had a plan. But when you're a small business, you say, hey, what does the next 3 to 5 years look like for me? And people go, I don't know. Of course we don't know, but nonetheless, you have to have a plan. And so if you're the age where you're going to retire or you're thinking about selling the business, entering into a 5 to 7 year lease may not be the smart thing to do. Renewing in your existing lease might be the right thing on a shorter term. Leases are what you create for them for your business. So if your business is dynamic, depending on your industry, depending on if it's industrial, retail, office services, or administrative use, all of those things take a different set of planning tools and a different set of industry professionals to help you.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, it's tough to come out and just say, hey, here's your general overall plan. But what you want to do is a year to 6 months before your lease expires, if we're just focusing on the lease and the physical bricks and mortar of the business, you want to start a year to 6 months ahead of time. Plan your budgets. Talk to your accountant. Talk to your HR person. And if you're all of those people, then you need to sit down, have a quiet cup of coffee, and kind of plan what you're going to do because you want to structure your lease and your bricks and mortar to meet your plan.
But I think, as you said, it's talking to you. It's not maybe your goals, right?
Yeah, it's not your goals.
You don't just want to start leasing space because for your goals. I mean, there's some more methodical thinking that needs to go into this with your accountant, gaining their perspective,
Yeah.
Maybe with your, as you said, your HR. Maybe it's with your sales manager or sales team.
Yeah, I have a goal of winning the lottery. I mean, that's, I keep attempting that goal every once in a while, but it's just I haven't hit it yet. So
you didn't buy the house with the goal of winning the lottery.
That's right. Yeah, that's cart horse type thing. Yeah. But anyway, you want to try to reasonably estimate are you going to have a moderate growth? Are you going to be winning new contracts? You're guessing, but before you because what you're doing is you're putting your plan in your lease. I mean, effectively, they're saying, hey, you're telling the landlord you're going to be in this space for the next 3 years or 5 years or 10 years. So shouldn't you have a pretty good idea what you're going to accomplish in that time? Because if you think you're going to merge, sell, divest, relocate, if you have potentially health issues, things like that, you really need to take a look, in its entirety, what that affects. And if you assemble the right team, trust them, and make them earn your trust. You can't just say, oh, here,
Sure.
take my next 5 years and be responsible for it for me. But you can actually sleep at night. When something comes up, they will have already prepared you in the lease for that. And it just gives you it gives you peace of mind going forward.
Matt Royal joins us, president and managing broker with Royal Commercial Corp. You talked about the next 3 to 5 years, and most people, I think, hope to grow if they're thinking about planning 3, 5, 7 years out. When it comes to a lease, does it make sense sometimes to start small and maybe a more vacant building, knowing the possibility of taking on more spaces there down the road? It might not be 100%,
right?
But you give yourself that option, because I imagine it's much harder to shrink your office than grow it.
Yes, they call that divesting or a divestiture of your space, and that is more difficult because you own it. And obviously, if you want to get rid of it, it's going to cost you money to do so. Anyway, without getting into down that path, but it's one of those to where if you plan ahead, you look at what's realistic for your business, you should be able to come up with a 3 to 5 year plan with options in there to allow you to be flexible. And if you're looking at a space saying, hey, if I go into this empty building, will I be able to grow? Well, if you think you're going to grow that much, great. But there's also issues in the lease where you need to say, if I'm the only building, or I'm the only tenant in this building, how much of the building operating expenses am I going to be responsible for? Am I 100% responsible for this building, even though I'm only 10% of the space? Mm-hmm. And whether that's retail, industrial, or office. So, again, most business owners aren't experts in fields that they're not currently in business in.
Sure, nor should they be.
Nor should they be, because it's impossible. Nobody can be all things to all people. But again, and I'm just not bucking for myself here or any brokerage firm. But if you're a tenant and you get a broker, you don't pay for the broker. The broker is free. It costs you no money for you to have representation with your landlord. $0. Your landlord's already spending it. So for those people to not have representation when they go in to do a renewal, first lease, a second lease, relocation, or an ancillary lease, ancillary space for them, it's just not the smartest practice in the world.
And I think one of the keys is, and you talked, and we do have to go to break here in about a minute, but you talked about leaving yourself options and leaving yourself some flexibility. If you take maybe a standard lease for like residential real estate, then maybe somebody's done a few of those for themselves. Maybe they've moved around with their family. There's not a lot of flexibility. It's okay, I'm going to rent this house. It's 12 months. But as you mentioned, with an office lease, it could be a totally different ballgame. Yeah,
your residential lease is 3 to 5 pages, and that's pretty much governed by the landlord, Washington State Landlord Act there. Commercial leasing's totally different beast. Totally. You'll have anywhere from a 20 to a 80-page lease with addendums, riders, floor plans, space, all of those things.
I think the second you say it might be an 80-page lease, that should probably tell people that they need help.
Yeah.
Because there's more than, 3 boxes to fill in, like on a residential one.
Yeah, there's more than just your rate and your time. Those are just the two most obvious elements of it. But everything else in that lease, there's a reason for all those words in there. And those words usually
are legally binding.
And they usually will end up costing the tenant money if they want to change the lease.
Well, Matt, thanks so much for joining us. As always, do appreciate it. Again, Matthew Royal, president of Royal Commercial Corp. When we come back, do you know how healthy maybe the building is that you're working in? And beyond that, do you know how healthy your house maybe is to live in as we get into this rainy time of year. Scott Appert joins us from BioHealthy Homes after this break.